Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm, of course, Nick McDaniel, and as always, I am joined by Momentum Iron.
Hello, folks. Joining you live from the top of the Tapped Out Tower. It's good to see you all here in attendance. We went to wrestling the other night.
We did.
It was awesome stuff.
Yeah, we're going to discuss that a little bit.
2 weeks in a row, Nick.
Yeah.
When's the last time we went to shows 2 weeks in a row since?
It's been a minute, man. That's for sure. It was good to hit out on the road, especially 2 weeks ago doing the Ox Benefit show and then heading up to Canton for that show as well this past weekend. And we're going to discuss that show when we get into the Georgia Indy Talk at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of other goodies and stuff. But, we always want to tell you before we get started here, we appreciate you listening, but if you're wanting a little deeper dig and some extras, sign up over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Again, that is patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Like we send out the show notes before we even record, so you can kind of see what we're going to talk about, before everybody else can. And, of course, the show comes out early, other little goodies along the way. And I want to record something this week that I was going to talk to you about a little bit later. Just some goodies and stuff. But anywho, check us out again over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod and get all the goodies a little bit early and stuff like that. But let's hit the big stuff, man, right out of the gate this week. Going to be a little more of a macro show than a recap show. That's kind of our wheelhouse anyway. And one of the things that seems to be a hot topic right now is Bad Bunny's in the mix. Bow Wow's apparently making some tweets, and Shaq's getting involved over in AEW. As you can, all this kind of stuff's going on. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about celebrities in pro wrestling. I mean, first and foremost, let's, it all stems from everybody. Why the backlash for Bad Bunny and, WWE, right? Let's start there because that's kind of the biggest one right now.
Because we don't know him, Nick. He's a Latin recording artist. He's a hip-hop rapper guy. So, one, he's out of our cultural and age demographic and musical taste. So, I bet Felipe knows all about him.
He does, and he was like, he's difficult to understand even to him, kind of thing. But, it's, listen.
But last night, man, did you watch Raw?
Absolutely.
Damian Priest was outnumbered. And Bad Bunny saved him by stealing the Money in the Bank briefcase. And all of a sudden, do you see this building of people who like Bad Bunny going to watch him on TV, and they're going to like Damian Priest, and then it's going to become like a synergy, and then you're going to wind up with more wrestling fans in a market WWE has never really been able to command.
Well, I'm sure Bad Bunny's got a following, obviously, because he's got a Grammy he's won. So he clearly has a fan base of some kind. And him just being, next to Damian Priest, I'm sure I haven't looked at his Twitter. I haven't looked at his, social media, whatever, to see if there's pictures of them together on there. But listen, it's going to draw eyes. That's kind of the whole point of what they do. And I know everybody was like, oh, this is blah, blah, blah.
No, we have to keep wrestling to ourselves, and we can't let anybody in to watch it besides us.
Well, it's the bad creative. But, oh, by the way, Bad Bunny merch was the top seller on WWEshop.com. So, bad creative decision or great business decision? Because we've already talked about the whole, the potential rub for Damian Priest and how that could elevate him. It's beneficial to be put into a program with a guy.
It's a historical thing. This has been happening since WrestleMania 1. This has been happening since radio DJs would come on and do a mixed tag with wrestlers. It's everything about bringing some form of eyes to your product and but you have to expand if you're going to grow. Okay. You have to give those title belts to the Tampa Bay Bucks. You have to put stuff out there where WWE is in front of new audiences, or we'll be left with nothing. Nothing. And that's their business model, and it's smart.
Yeah, I mean, like you brought up, man. I mean, listen, when we were kids, I mean, if we were all diehard wrestling fans and we didn't want to see any celebrities, and we never saw Cyndi Lauper, we never saw Mr. T, we never saw Muhammad Ali. I mean, that is what made WrestleMania so special when it started. And I get it. A lot of it was in the WWF/E, I mean, but we still had, and I know everybody's going to crap on it, but you had Rodman, you had, Malone, David Arquette, Jay Leno, that drew all of this
Mm-hmm.
outside, publicity into wrestling, and that's what made wrestling hot. Was outside people coming in, but even WWE using Snooki. I mean, we talked about Lawrence Taylor back in the day, Floyd Mayweather, and think about this: Ronda Rousey coming over,
Yep.
but now, granted, she became a wrestler. I mean, as far as she wasn't just a celebrity or whatever, and yeah, I mean, like you said it best, man. I mean, without growth, you're declining, and you got to keep bringing in new people from the outside, and we have to embrace this at some point that for what it is.
Is it going to hurt us if Bad Bunny has a match at WrestleMania?
None.
No. It's WrestleMania, folks. They've always been something like this going on. It's expected. Why are people so butthurt about it? WWE is a corporation that has marketing strategies. They evaluate their gaming strategies. They're trying to appeal to. They've got animated products they're working on for a 2 to 6 year old audience. They've got a 15-year-old market thing they're going with. They're talking about bringing in Cardi B, like the Cyndi Lauper of 2021. You do what's relevant, and you have to put your product in front of people some way, because kids are not sitting in front of a television anymore.
Right.
My kids both have televisions in their rooms. Never on, unless they're using it to stream something through a Fire Stick. Never on.
Well,
No cable.
Myron, and think about this. This is going to be the first WrestleMania that's going to be on Peacock.
Yep.
NBC Universal is going to want, something that's like will draw that casual fan. Because if you're watching Peacock, if you're streaming, your TV show, now they've got the test run beforehand with Fastlane or whatever the hell they're showing, I think. But
Elimination Chamber.
Well, they're going to have another one. There's one before that. So,
oh, cool.
The first one that's actually going to be on Peacock is Fastlane, I believe.
Okay.
So, here's the thing: if you are streaming Peacock and you see a giant banner on there for WrestleMania, if you let's be blunt. If you saw Drew McIntyre versus whomever the hell he's going to be facing, it's Sheamus or who gives it? Does that draw you into watching as much as seeing?
That wouldn't draw me into watching.
But I'm saying if you were a casual fan who knows nothing about wrestling, but you saw Bad Bunny standing next to Damian Priest, and they're wrestling Miz and Morrison. Because think about this, folks. Guess what's on Peacock? Ms. and Mrs.
Oh.
It's a USA show, right?
Are the Bellas on there? Because they're a USA property, right?
That's an E property.
Oh, sorry, that's E. But that's NBC, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah. So, but that's what my point is. If you watch Peacock, it's not going to be the first time you've seen The Miz, because of Ms. and Mrs. And you're going to see Bad Bunny. It's liable to draw a casual set of eyes.
And add value to the people. Add value to your subscription to Peacock. Add value to what you're already putting out there. Make wrestling fans out of people who may never have been wrestling fans.
Right. By the way, folks, that's kind of the point.
Let's not push them away. This is. Encourage somebody this week. Encourage somebody who's not a wrestling fan to watch some of this stuff. Mania's coming up. Everybody needs to bring one more fan to the thing.
Yeah.
One more fan to the table during WrestleMania. Be that your challenge. Because we got to keep wrestling alive, or none of this other stuff's going to run if WWE's not running. End of story.
Well, and it's if you can get it to the dance where telling somebody how good something could be, you could say like, "Hey, every show's not perfect, right? No television show's perfect. There's always something to critique and stuff, and that's fine." But to draw in another new fan, whether it be to AEW or it's WWE or Impact or whatever, why don't you try telling them something that you really like about those shows? If you don't, then you probably shouldn't be watching. But anyway, I digress. But because there's lots of things we like about all of the shows, and I think one of the ones that we've got a potential to open the floodgates is literally, as we joked about last week on Dynamite, the forbidden doors open now. So because we always thought, Dynamite or AEW and New Japan, there was some kind of issue there with Kenny Omega. But, but following the 6-man tag match, Kenta Hideo Itami of NXT fame, that's what a lot of people, but Kenta shows up and hits the go to sleep on Jon Moxley. And alas, that could only mean that the New Japan door is open.
I think this is, it's so exciting because it will give me the opportunity to experience some New Japan without having to go all in on New Japan. You know what I mean? Give me a little sampler, a little appetizer plate in New Japan without having to watch those shows that are 6 or 8 hours and nobody claps. I can see some more talent, new things, different things.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to have, they've already announced that, obviously Kenny and Kenta. I'm struggling not to call him Hideo Itami still, which shouldn't be the case because he hasn't been there in a while. But Kenny and Kenta are going to wrestle Moxley and Archer upcoming. So that'll be, I mean, like, my thing is it's going to give us a lot of cool matches, right? I mean, when I'm sitting here looking at the card, of course, we're leading towards Moxley and Kenta wrestling for the IWGP title, the U.S. Championship, but easy for me to say. And rumors are the match has already been filmed, apparently, somewhere in a closed set. So that kind of stuff's interesting. But I think what it helps with New Japan is, they've got this new Roku deal. So, at least it's a kind of a taste to kind of maybe expand. I'm starting to wonder when we're going to see that announcement. Maybe AEW helps them out and kind of puts that out there that they have this, partnership, and they could check out New Japan on the Roku stick.
And the Roku, good God, everybody's putting something out there on the Roku for wrestling right now. It's amazing time. But can AEW help everybody and still succeed though?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the $1 million question is that they're working with Impact, they're working with AAA, NWA, on and on and on. I think it's easy to say that, yes, they can work. But my question becomes, I've got it written down here, is that, with all the partnerships they have, is this going to hinder some of their the younger talent development? Because, yeah, they're on dark, but they're not on TV. And that's, I think a question to ask. I mean, you agree?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And if they don't take advantage of some of these deals to get their talent over, it's going to be a mistake. They need to send these people that are on dark. If they can't work them in to dark, send them over there to an NWA show. Send them on to some Impact tapings. Let them get some work in. Send them to Japan if it's going to benefit them. There's already somebody that would benefit from going to Japan. Do something that will benefit your talent all around. Don't just give of yourself and of your promotion to the point that you're not doing what your initial business model was helping independent wrestling and helping, that alternate wrestling fan base.
Right. And I'm like I said, I think it's great for the product that you're bringing on Impact guys and NWA talents and, New Japan stuff now. But I do think it's a fine line they've got to walk here because, we were getting excited for the Varsity Blondes, for example.
Yeah.
Coming along. But now if we start bringing over, like, do the Good Brothers coming over push that back a little bit? It's a very fine line to walk, and I think that's the kind of stuff that you got to be careful about.
Well, they got Private Party on Impact, which is good for them and Impact.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying have a farm system like in baseball, but share, trade, move people around. There's no point in not taking advantages of all this. Build those dream matches. Think about that. Build the dream matches people always talk about wanting to see, but couldn't. You've got all this material now you can work with.
You could generate a super card.
Super cards. Oh, God.
Yeah, like back in the day when you would have AWA, NWA, World Class all kind of get together and make a super card. I think you have that potential now, and develop things that we just haven't seen. But again, it's a fine line to walk because and we're going to see. I'm going to give some examples of some of that in our next topic that I wanted to jump into. Yeah. And what we want to talk about is, here we are we're over a year in on AEW, and arguably the tag team division was going to be, everybody tells you it's the greatest tag team division in wrestling, and I think it's riddled with problems, not unsolvable problems to say that, but it does have some issues, and again, I want to kind of go over, like, when they started, they had the Young Bucks, they had the Lucha Brothers, they had Jurassic Express, they had all of that, a lot of teams that they had in there. But who did they put, the tag belts on, and who are the longest reigning champions? Right? It's like
mismatch.
Yeah, it was a hodgepodge of teams. I mean, it should have been the best division in the world, but they've had really good matches. Think about this too, because some of the matches they've had, the tag matches, off the charts that they've had on Dynamite with the Lucha Brothers versus insert team, or on and on and on. But the stories themselves, those have been a little lacking. And then the teams who aren't ready seem to get I think the teams that are ready kind of get put on the back burner for obvious reasons.
Have they worked so hard just to keep the belts off the Bucks that they've kind of let the things that need to be done not go through?
Like I said, they finally end up put them on, right? So, but here's one of their first defenses is coming against a team that's not, and that's their first problem. So let's list some of the problems. Obviously, the first one we talked about is makeshift teams getting opportunities instead of true teams. We talked about it first. Paige and Omega were the first. They're the longest reigning tag champions they've had. Think about that. Two guys that literally, I mean, they were a group. They were in that little group together, the Elite. But the only reason, let's be blunt, the only reason they lost the belts was to put them to FTR, so we could get the FTR Bucks match for the titles.
Yeah.
And then now, right out of the gate at Revolution, we're getting Jericho and MJF. They're getting a shot of another. And now, listen, by the way, nobody loves those two wrestlers more than me. I love them both individually, but they're not a tag team.
Yeah. And if you're going to use that for storyline, now if this is something that can develop and advance storylines, more power to you. If that tool right there is something that you can use to help, but don't sacrifice your tag team division to get over your singles division, because right now your singles division is the best thing you got going for you.
Absolutely, and I think that's what I kind of feel like you're doing, is you're sacrificing the tag team title situation to further the Chris Jericho MJF story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem, and it's been the problem from the get-go, which leads us to problem two, where you get guys like hopping over team. Like, so we were told that things like, oh, the rankings matter, etc. Well, let's go back to the situation we just talked about, where Jericho and MJF, essentially the rankings don't matter, because all you did is you just created a battle royal so they could leap over all the current tag teams to get a title shot. And the original issue to that was the Revival. When they were released from WWE, they basically come in and they just catapulted past every, Lucha Brothers, Santana and Ortiz, the Dark Order, on and on, and you name every one of it. They literally just bypassed all of that just to get us, so we could quickly get to the Young Bucks versus FTR match. And essentially you just dismantled the whole ranking system just to get to that match.
When you backburnered guys who'd been in there doing their time, who'd been in there putting in their time and making stuff and advancing storylines. Now, I get it. You want to get that super talent in there. You want to get guys like John Moxley right into the title picture for the singles title. Guys like the Revival right into the title picture, because they're big names. But don't sacrifice other things,
Right. I mean, it's literally, and here's the thing. They were going to be the alternative. They were going to be different. Now, here's to be fair. They're doing exactly what WWE does as a whole. Mm-hmm. The WWE doesn't, I don't know that anyone does tag team divisions well. Like, everybody goes, oh, they have great matches. They do have great matches. But that doesn't mean your tag team division is being booked well just because you have great matches. And I think ultimately they are booking the same way WWE does, and when it comes to the tag team division, so you're not really an alternative.
Well, this is another one of those things where you've got Impact working with you. Impact does phenomenal work with tag teams, male and female. If you want to get some talent on TV and some more practice, you're going to bring in the Good Brothers, they've set Private Party down with, back and forth. Yeah. Talent trades, do stuff, make people get over. And I don't think WWE sorry, I don't think AEW accomplishes as much of getting rubs, if you get what I'm saying. They can't get that superstar rub off on another. They don't bring talent along. They don't use the older talent effectively to bring new talent in or to elevate people. It's just more assumed.
The follow-up problem to all of that, Myron, is that
Uh-huh.
the problem that I have with their tag team division is they're not shining. You're talking about giving the rub and something. Hell, why don't you just give the shine to the team who deserves it? I'm going to give you teams when you think about it. I've already mentioned them a couple times here, but Jurassic Express, Santana and Ortiz, Dark Order, Lucha Brothers, so forth and so on. Here's all these teams. None of them have really been into the mix.
I didn't even know Santana Ortiz had that team name.
Well, that was their old name. That's what I'm saying. You know, when they were over in Impact, they were one of, you know, Impact's best teams. But none of these guys are getting the opportunities to shine because they're being leapfrogged by hodgepodge teams and stuff. And I think, like I said, to try to solve these problems is essentially you need to stop with the makeshift teams. You've got plenty of tag teams, real tag teams, folks, that could challenge. Especially, by the way, if you're going to be bringing in talents from NWA and Impact, New Japan, etc., you got enough teams. Just do teams.
Yeah.
If you're doing this, because this is a WWE problem wholeheartedly, I've fully thrown it out there. If you're putting people together because you don't have room for individual talents to be, in the singles, competition or whatever, you might be signing too many people.
Yeah, and if you're going to get that, you need that second show, folks. You're going to bring in all this talent. WWE has learned that they have to have two big shows to be able to feature all this talent. They have to be separate rosters.
They have three shows and they still have too many people.
Exactly.
That's a whole other argument.
Exactly.
So stop with the makeshift teams. Focus on the teams you got. Listen, use the teams. Give Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus an opportunity. I always throw my notes in there. I could do without Marco Stunt, but I mean those two as a team, and then God forbid, Impact's, Santana and Ortiz were two dastardly villain, heel teams, and I think they earned their money. Like, give them their opportunity, get them away from being Jericho's puppets. Which, by the way, again, nobody loves Chris Jericho as much as I do, but get them away and let them go back to being, literally that.
When they had that tag team match, that parking lot brawl, 5 stars Meltzer gave it. Okay, so they can tag team. They can work. They can put on great matches. Let them.
Give them an opportunity to shine and let them, rise to the top, right? Let's move on, get to the last big topic before we hit into the Indy Talk and talk about rising to the top, right? So something came up this week that it was something that made me think. And the question was, has Paul Heyman, with his work, has he become the greatest manager of all time? And so we talked about this a little bit off air, and so I'll let you start. I mean, like,
there is an argument on an argument against for. There's no arguments that are like in the middle on this one. This is a love or hate thing. We grew up in the era of managers in wrestling where they were so prominent. Singles, tag managers. They got heat. They made the storylines better, and we've gone away from that. And all of a sudden, one dinosaur survived and evolved, while everybody else either died or went on to do other things. And Heyman's there. Is he better than Heenan? No. Is he better than Cornette? No. He's still there, though. He's still doing it, and he's still advancing talent at an amazing rate. So his longevity, he might be like, like a rock star that has a very long career, and they're viewed as better than they really are because they've been there so long.
You brought up Heenan because that's typically your debate is Bobby Heenan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked, when during his peak run, and I guess you almost have to consider his peak run is that when he was the foil, the Heenan family, the foil to Hogan. So that's kind of Heenan at his peak, right?
Yeah.
Some people beg to differ. That's not the case. That it was pre that when he was AWA. He was, so in that stretch, so my thing was anybody better than Heenan at his peak? And you're saying no. And then so my question was, has Heyman's longevity and the whole "what have you done for me lately" mentality, is that what makes us now ask the question? It's, listen, we just went past the Super Bowl, right? And everybody was talking GOAT, Brady, Mahomes,
Yeah.
And on and on. Is Mahomes like the what have you done for me lately? And I think Brady squashed that in the Super Bowl, but
Yeah.
that was kind of the going into it. It's like, oh, Mahomes is the best ever. So my question is that the Heyman scenario is that he's just the only one we see anymore, week in and week out.
At the top of the cards, too.
Mm-hmm.
Managing champions. Always up there. Always able to add more to the program. Getting guys over. Roman's more over than he ever has been before. They got that new kid they just signed out of college football. And they're like, he's a new Heyman guy. He's a new Heyman guy. All you want to do is be a Heyman guy. If you want to get over and win titles, you need to be a Heyman guy. And how do you argue with that?
Well,
how do you argue with the fact that he has put so many belts on his guys?
Yeah, but would you argue, because, obviously his legacy goes on and on and all the way back too, but when Heenan was at his peak, he was up against Cornette, Jimmy Hart, J.J. Dillon, Paul Bear, on and on and on, all those names, right?
Mm-hmm.
Heyman, does he just stand out because there's nobody else there?
The sole survivor.
Yeah.
He's the last man left, the last one standing. And I think there's a reason for that.
But there's an argument to be made of Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, Brock Lesnar again, back to that train, Roman Reigns now. Like, when he picks, he typically picks wisely.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of why we is he the greatest manager? And it was a question that was thrown out there, and we're like, hey, let's debate it. Before we move on, yes or no, is he? If not, who is?
To me or to the listeners? I think the listeners need to weigh in on this.
Yeah, the listeners are going to weigh in. We're going to ask them, as always, to let us know.
I'm going to say this is like comparing Michael Jordan and LeBron James.
Which we do all the time and we pick.
But they are different. We're comparing apples and oranges.
Foot to the fire.
Foot to the fire. No, Heenan's the greatest manager of all time because Heenan was more. I liked Heenan's gimmick. I like Heenan on commentary. Paul's not. I don't like Paul on commentary.
I'll tell you why I say my answer, has grown over the years. Obviously, we did a poll way back when, and we picked Heenan as the best ever. If Paul can do this for I know everybody's going to say, for a little while longer, he can get there. Paul does something where he actually, it seems like he's even talking people into seats, when they can. We'll let that go. But let us know what you think at Tapped Out Pod on social media. Of course, comment below if you're watching the video as well. We always greatly appreciate your feedback and comments. But we're going to head straight into the Georgia Indy Talk. Big weekend. We talked about it a little bit earlier. We headed up to Canton this past week. We saw the Southern Honor Show. And listen, we're going to start first and foremost with the All-Star Special. That is correct. The All-Star Special, who we have all deemed if William Huckabee and Hold My Beer Hansen can, they make this whole year run together as a team, we both predicted right at the show, this is your Georgia Wrestling History Tag Team of the Year.
Super over. Baby faces. They've almost got. We saw their first debut, and they sold all their T-shirts that day. Okay, nobody sells merch like that. They popped that crowd so big, and there's so much planned for these guys. It's theirs to lose. Because think about it. They may not be Ricky and Robert, but the bones are there, and the possibilities are there. And they're over. And that's all that matters.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. They have all the pieces to the puzzle. And then, like I said, they got a leg up, man. When they came out, crowds behind them from the jump.
Yep.
So give them something that the fans can sink their teeth into, a storyline for the next, 10 months. Tag Team of the Year, folks.
How great is it to see fans super into something? Fans reacting so positively. Man, I was entranced.
Yeah. Let's talk about the one negative I took from the show, because we wouldn't be being honest. Did the show go too long? Sure, it did. It's not the first time I've gave feedback that the show was too long. But guess what I said? But did the fans care at the very end of the show when Logan Creed returned to that show? His music hit. They didn't give a shit.
You forget everything.
Yeah.
When the moment pops, you forget everything else. And wrestling is a moment business. Okay. And right now they're creating amazing moments.
That was the strength of the show, was moments.
Mm-hmm.
110%. I agree with you. AC Mack came home. He was missing in action for a while, as Owen pointed out, which was funny. But Sonny back in the ring was cool to see. Proud of that kid, all the hard work he's put in, and he got in there and he was moving around. Looks like he hadn't lost a step, man. Good, that made me happy. But like you said, man, that show was about moments.
Yeah.
The matches were good. Some of them went too long. We talked about that. Some of the Petty Party segment probably went a little bit too long as well. But at the end of the day, we remembered all of the moments. Everybody was going home, and we're in the car. Sweet Caroline, bum bum bum. And why? It's because we witnessed a moment. We witnessed the debut of All-Star Special. Mm-hmm. AC Mack coming back, back to Southern Honor. We got to see Logan Creed return to Southern Honor. Just on and on and on. And, I think those are the kind of things that people forget. Oh, and by the way, Tony freaking Schiavone was in the house.
How cool was that? But guys, there were people, wrestling luminaries besides the two of us. There were so many people backstage that are huge names. People out in the crowd that are huge names. Tony Schiavone sitting at the control booth.
Yeah.
Holy shit. You think it was easy for Dylan to get Tony out to an indie show?
I don't know. We probably should have asked him how difficult it was. But it's the old joke used to be you never know who's going to show up, and clearly this show was kind of the return to that mantra, I'm assuming. But so next month when Southern Honor rolls around, make the trip up to Canton. Enjoy the show, and who knows, there'll be some more All-Star Special stuff for sale. Buy some merch and have a great time. But let's move into some of this week. Some of the big news is obviously everybody has heard by now. Anthony Henry has signed. Looks like he's heading on down to the NXT. This is going to his last indie show. Is going to be down at Action this weekend.
Oh, cool.
Which, by the way, they're going to be streaming live Friday on IWTV.
Live,
kind of be cool.
That's awesome to have live wrestling streaming on TV, not recorded. They're doing something really cool here. I like that. They've been changing the game up, and they've done so many new things this year. I think a lot of people put their eye on them just because of their inventiveness. So
yeah, I mean, listen, Action's known for what its name is. Bell to bell, in the ring action. That's what they do. That's their strength. And Matt does a great job down there. Always has. We all know Larry loves it. He raves about it. So again, if you're in the area this weekend and you're looking for a good show, Friday, Action's the place to be. I did also want to talk about something. It's just a sidebar for some reason because he wrestles at Action a lot, so it kind of triggered in my brain. It was really cool to see O'Shea Edwards. He made his Ring of Honor debut. It's on YouTube, by the way, if you want to go check it out. He wrestled Sledge. Listen, we've loved the guy for years. I mean, it was good to know him when he was living here in Atlanta. And so it was really a cool, proud moment to see him on that, Ring of Honor debut. So kudos and glad, he's got some big things coming. By the way, learned a trip while we were at Southern Honor. I wanted to bring up rumors are that Viral may be having a home sooner than later. So they'll be fingers crossed. Are they the last piece of the puzzle, man? I was going to ask you when they come back.
I think they're the last name, since Southern Fried's announced they're coming back. IWE is tearing it up right now. I think Viral is the next big name to come back, and it's very important that we have healthy wrestling promotions in Georgia where people can work. We need as many of them as possible because this state is a feeder state for the big guys, and we got to get those talent work. And that's just all there is to it. And I can't wait to see more and more promotions come back, especially viral.
Right. The other local stuff that's got some big news coming around is if you haven't noticed and you haven't been paying attention, AWE has been doing tapings. They've been doing their show for TV. It's on Roku, but they're moving. They're filming. They're going to move over to the Bright Screen Studios. They're going to have to limit. It looks like they're going to have to limit their crowd to 100 people. And the way they're going to do it is their Patreon members are going to be the ones who are allowed to attend. And we kind of talked about this from a business perspective. It's because I don't know why my brain always goes there. It just does. Their Patreon members of $25 or higher get in. Yep. It's included in your Patreon membership. And you were kind of like puzzled. At first, you're kind of like, well, no. And I'm like, hold on a second. From a business perspective, if you get 100 people who are $25 Patreon members, that's $2,500. Honestly, I hate to be this guy, but if they don't show up to the tapings, do they care? You got their money.
It's a guaranteed gate every time.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. And those tapings are a lot of show from what I hear. You get a lot of wrestling on those shows.
Yeah.
I'm folks, how crazy it is these days where wrestling is changing into a digital media platform. It's changing the way you watch wrestling. The business is completely different. The model of walking up and giving somebody $10 at the gate is going away. Stuff will be booked out ahead. Stuff will be bought online. Stuff will be streamed online. Shows that you would have gone to but can't because of situations. I work a lot on Saturdays, Sundays, Fridays. But I can watch the show. I can come rush home and watch it just like a WWE pay-per-view.
Yeah. I mean,
wrestling is changing.
WWE's changing the game, and you have to be willing to kind of follow along. And I know we can't all, everybody can't do that model that WWE is because we're not, the indie promotions aren't that size. But I'm telling you, even at the indie level, the business itself is changing, and it's just starting, and more things are coming. Trust me, I know. Things are changing, and it's kind of cool to see some of the changing, and it's cool to see somebody like AWE being involved in changing the way they do and adapting in the time when you kind of have to do business. Yeah. And before we move on from talking about AWE, I did want to say, if you have not watched, you're missing William Huckabee doing commentary, and I joked with him on Friday of last week saying, so you're trying to become commentator of the year. You're trying to become tag team of the year. You're probably trying to get a match of the year at some point with somebody, in this team, and on and on and on. All these different things that they're trying, and he jokingly was like, yes, because he's doing some really good work there on that commentary. Yeah. So,
yeah, it's good to see him getting over. I've always loved him. He's my favorite person to hang out with around WrestleCade. Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's just good to see people doing good in hard times.
Absolutely agree with you. Like I said, man, it's a crazy time in indie wrestling. It's a crazy time in wrestling. Things are constantly changing. But the one thing we always ask that you don't change, make sure you're subscribing somewhere for us, man.
Yes, sir.
Whether it's on anywhere on social media, Apple, if you're a podcast listener, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Amazon Music, doesn't matter. All platforms, even YouTube if you're a video watcher. We do that as well as we do on our other, obviously if you're watching the video. Elsewhere, we're there. Subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. We would greatly appreciate that for sure. Because, hey, podcasts got to survive. Bills got to be paid, baby.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's everything I had for this week's show, man. Do you got anything else before we get out of here? Or?
My hole. The new chant in wrestling.
Could be. Unfortunately, it could be. So.
Every time. I'm going to go from hardest part of the ring. Every time. JR always said, hardest part of the ring. Now, when anybody takes a bump on the apron, I'm going to go, my hole.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
That's just you. Anything else, buddy?
That's it.
Well, man, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.